Well, it's all kicking off, boys. What can I say? It's almost like I started doing this right at just the right time. We wake up this morning to hear that our very dear friend Roger Lewis has decided to be a quitter. He decided to, he's had enough, and he's gonna go at the end of after the World Cup. So yes, and today has been mainly in the media, all about trying to decide what Roger Lewis's legacy is all about. Ooh, well, I'm sure we've all got our ideas on that, haven't we? For me, personally, my views are that I don't think he ever understood his remit, his role. I think he saw himself as someone who just had to produce results for the national team, and that was it. And in fairness, a lot of the work that went on to produce the results for the national team had gone on before he was even here. So you know, the structure was in place, and this is the key for me now. See, is he treated. You know, I appreciate he hasn't been looking after the grassroots game, and you know, you speak to most club representatives and they will, you know, back that up. You know, I'm going on other people's opinions generally, really. But the regions, now Roger seemed to treat or see the regions as his enemy. Now this is where I couldn't get my head on. Didn't he realise that the regions were a product of the WIU? They got rid of the clubs and put those regions there. Now the reason they're not fully controlled by the WIU was because they couldn't afford to. They needed private investors to invest to keep those regions going. Now it got to the stage where enough was enough. They couldn't put that money in for the little return or control that they were having over those regions. They were fighting with one hand behind their back all the time. So that's one area where I think Roger badly got it wrong. He just didn't understand. One of the things I think, when I look at what Roger Lewis has done, it's almost like you see someone doing a project on a car or something, and they want to make the car go faster, so they decide they're going to build a spoiler, and they decide they haven't got any material to build the spoiler, so they take bits and pieces from the engine to produce this spoiler, which they place on the car, and for a little while the car goes faster, but sooner or later the engine's going to go bang, because he's taken it from the base, the foundations of the game. He's taken from the base of the game and put it on the top of the game, just to make it go a little bit faster for the time being while he was in control. Just so that he could say, look how fast I made it go, boys. Yeah, but mate, the cost of that has been that you've made it go bang, or it's about to blow. The engine is about to blow, because you've robbed from the engine materials and put it as a fancy spoiler on the back. That's basically what you've done to Welsh rugby. I don't know if that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. I don't know if it makes sense in anybody else's head. You know, call me for what it is. There it is. That's my opinion. Also, this attitude, this pathetic, passive attitude of, when it comes to tackling the problem that the rest of world rugby has got, in that, you know, we've got money in France and it's dominating the game, okay? It's dominating the club game, the domestic game. So his and the WIU's attitude to this has been, we can't compete with it. It's pointless trying. We just, just bury our heads in the sand and just butted it up with trying to make Wales look good. Now, the thing is, we're proper Welsh rugby fans. We want to see the whole of the game in Wales doing well, not just the national team. I want to see, and I'm a Scarlets fan, and provided the Scarlets are doing okay as well, I'm quite happy to see the Ospreys and Cardiff and the Dragons doing well. You know what I mean? Obviously, I don't want to see it at the expense of the Scarlets, but at the same time, I do want to see a strong domestic game in Welsh rugby, and we haven't got it. And we're never going to get it the way under the module that Roger Lewis put in place. Now, what was frustrating was this attitude of we're never going to be able to do it, and they don't even try to. And there was avenues he could have explored. What he needed to ask was, how has French rugby got that money, right? I've been over to France, and their club game, right, their grounds are supported from the local authorities, municipal stadia. On a second while I negotiate a roundabout. And they also then, people say, well, where are they getting the money from? Oh, sugar daddy, or whatever you want to call them, right? These rich sugar daddies. What the fuck? Sorry, boys. You know what I'm on about, right? The guys with money that want to come in. Now, the thing is, right, why have those men come into those clubs and not our clubs then? Why haven't we had money come into private investment? What is so wrong? Why are they so scared of private investment? You know why, don't you? Because they won't have control. That's, but it doesn't seem to harm French rugby. The French game is thriving. You can feed off it. The English game is exactly the same. Their clubs historically were smaller than ours and weaker than ours, 9 times out of 10. And as soon as the game went professional, Wales, you thought, oh, Wales will kick on here because we got strong clubs, and if we can keep them at the clubs, if they get support like they do now, and we don't lose anyone to the league, our club game was going to be strong, and the national team would do strong off the back of it. But no, we seem to not value what we had in our clubs, and I include clubs like Pontypridd in this. Okay, Bridgend. They are they may not have been a successful club, Bridgend, but they did produce a lot of players. Now, what they were lacking really was proper investment. Now, we've had businessmen trying to get involved, and they just gave up in the end because the WIU just didn't want them there. They wanted their money though, so that the WIU didn't have to fork out and cover in the game. Oh, I got diesel, boys. Ooh. But so this is Roger's legacy, and this is why it always leads into, when I have a conversation about rugby, this has been bugging me for a long time. It nearly cost me. It nearly made me leave the game totally, to be honest. And it's not just Roger. In fairness to him, I had to laugh. Right, I've been listening to the radio today, and one guy, when he was put, I think it was Rhys Williams. He was posed the question with regards, what his legacy, but what about the domestic game? It's failed. You can't just look at the national team. The domestic game has failed under his tenure. And Rhys Williams' response was, but you can't blame just one man. And like, hang on a minute, the whole programme was debating about one man's legacy, and up until then they'd all been pointing out what he'd done great, what Wales had done great under him, and as soon as something negative was pointed out that he's failed on, the blame's got to be shifted then, or equalled out. Well, hang on a minute. If he's going to take credit for something, shouldn't that credit be equalled out as well then? To the grassroots, to these places that have produced these players. There's mums and dads voluntarily going down and training these youngsters. They're not getting paid for it. If you go to England, you go to like Richmond or something like that, right? They got, I don't know, they got like a 20, 30 youngsters teams there, right? And they've got paid coaches coaching them at that level. Okay? So that's an eye-opener. That is where basically, so you can bang on about, oh, we're just a small country and we're just poor, and well, that attitude, you always will be then. If you've got that attitude, you always will be. You'll never be anything better than that. If that's the attitude you've got, oh, that's all we are, we'll never compete. What a pathetic attitude. I tell you what, if Roger Lewis, if that's your attitude, Roger Lewis, right, thankfully you were never a Welsh international then, innit? Huh? Because can you imagine taking a field with that sort of attitude, pal? Huh? Can you imagine it? Packing down at hooker, and he just about to go down the first scrum against New Zealand or South Africa. Oh, they're bigger than me, we'll never compete. Can you imagine having that attitude? Oh, Roger, you were an absolute disgrace, mate, alright? You were a disease on the game. That's what you were. The Welsh game, you were a disease on it, okay? The things you did to satisfy your own agenda and ego was absolutely sickening to the Welsh rugby fan. I will not have people come and state now how great he was. The man was a maniac. He was a maniac, honestly. He nearly killed the game in Wales. And for people who were, and I met a few people this weekend, friends of mine, and they said, oh, but I just want to come along to a game and have a beer and enjoy the rugby. I don't care about all the politics. I tell you what, boys, you should bloody care, alright? Because the very thing you're trying to bury your head away from is the very thing that's going to kill the thing you love. It's going to stop you doing what you like to do. And that is why people like me, and lots of other people, are so irate about this, is because we can see that it's that close, and it still isn't over. Alright, he's going. The damage has been done. I'm not sure whether we can recover from this domestically, and it's only a matter of time. Whatever happens domestically eventually filters through to the national team. So the struggles that the regions are seeing now, and the grassroots are seeing now, in 5 and 10 years' time, that's what the national team is going to be struggling with, right? So, you know, it's so frustrating. But yes, Roger's gone. Moving on to they picked the team for Scotland. No, what am I on about? They picked the team for France. Picked the team for France, right? They've made a few changes. So I'm very surprised with Hibbard being dropped. I know what people are saying about he didn't offer much in the games, but that's one of the positions where we got quite a few injuries, and he was really the only option. I think there's too much of a drop-off with the guy that they picked. But who knows? Gatland, Warren and Sean have obviously watched these guys in training. So he's been picked. He'll have my support. And Warren and Sean will have my support as well. For the French game. Even though I have picked France as my tip for the Six Nations, I obviously, you know, I want to see Wales doing well. You know, despite it does feather the nest of, you know, Roger Lewis can go out on a high if Wales do well. So there is a little part of me I'm thinking, well, I won't be that upset if Wales don't do well, because it will highlight that, you know, the grass, you know, the tenure of Roger Lewis isn't as great as what people think it's been. Yeah, so the team, I'm glad to see Liam Williams has kept his place. I think it's the right decision to drop Cuthbert, because he hasn't played well from the start. He's had 2 shockers now, And some could say the mistakes he's made have cost us the game well, I would say they didn't cost us the game in the Scotland game. But, yeah. So the team, I'm surprised he's kept the back row the same. I don't see what Lydiate offers at the moment. I mean, I don't dislike him as a player, but at the moment his form is way out, and Topuric is a far better accomplished player. Topuric is a far more accomplished player, and I think you can play a better game if you've got Topuric and Warburton. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not convinced it's Lydiate and Warburton. I don't know, they haven't played well enough for me. I would have gone, I know it's a big thing to do. I would have gone, because as far as I'm aware, I've only seen the team sheet briefly while I was in work today, but as far as I'm aware, Sam is still captain. I would have made a change there. I would have made Alan Wynne-Jones, and that's from a Scarlet fan, okay? I would have made Alan Wynne-Jones captain, and I would have benched Sam Warburton and brought Topuric in, and I'd have maybe brought somebody else in for Lydiate as well. I just don't think, you know, France are going to have a monster back row. They always have. And he's shown that he wasn't capable of playing the French game that well, being released from his contract with Racing Metro. So, you know, as far as, you know, the team, he made a couple of changes. I think North, he needs a game. He needs a game because he's lucky Cuthbert has been as bad as he is. Because if Cuthbert was on form and Liam playing as he did, I wouldn't have picked North. I know that's a big statement to make. That's a big statement to make, but I don't know, the way North is playing for Wales. Well, yeah, this is it, right? North playing for Wales now. Well, if you look at it, George North's performances for Northampton now and Wales, it's like Wales fans now are seeing what the Scarlets fans saw out of George North when he was playing for the Scarlets towards the end. It was all about Wales and the Lions, obviously, and the World Cup, and he was just, he was treating the Scarlets as an incubator. He was taking a field. There were a couple of times where he had the ball in the Scarlet shirt, and between him and the try line was a scrum half, and he just took a half-hearted tackle and went to ground and set the ball up. Right, did not even try to beat him, didn't want to. Now, it seemed to me North, young as he was, had been influenced by Roger Lewis wrongly, and I don't blame George North. He was young, perhaps a bit naive, but you know, obviously looking from the Scarlets' point of view, they